She is endorsing a political candidate. And if you just look at the facts, I mean, that's actually just illegal.
Before you say, well, maybe it was paid for by one of the other companies that allow political activity. No, no, no. It says Turning Point USA behind her head during the speech. The tickets for the event were sent out from Turning Point USA. The fact page for the event is hosted at TPUSA.com. And at the bottom of the webpage, it explicitly says Turning Point USA is a 501c3. It looks to me like the executives at Turning Point are playing pretty fast and loose with the laws concerning 501c3s. Remember why this is important. A 501c3 is tax exempt, which is a tax subsidy. You are paying more in taxes so that they do not have to. So is it fair that Democrats are paying taxes that fund a campaign commercial for J.D. Vance? This is so unjust, which is why there are so many laws against what Erika Kirk just did.
There's a lot of questions about the nature of Erika Kirk's relationship and what she was really there for, why she was, she met Charlie Kirk in Israel and then immediately started working for the organization after she, it's kind of weird. No one's brought this up. Kind of weird. She spent all this time trying to make it in Hollywood, be this Hollywood person. Then she's doing the CIA thing with the electromagnetic pulse. And then all of a sudden she's in Israel and like, screw Hollywood, screw all the TV shows on. I want to be with Charlie Kirk now. I want to be politics girl now. What? You were doing like reality TV for years and years. And then suddenly you take a decision that's going to nuke the whole reality TV route. Isn't that just a little bit weird? I don't know. Okay, but look at this. This is from Baron Coleman. He brought up something I find kind of interesting.
Watch what happens. This is the moment he meets Erika Fransved. I think it's a month or two after this tax return is filed, after this tax return closes, after fiscal year 2018. And keep in mind, the only three people listed on the officers, directors, and key employees, the only three people listed as of this return right here. I'll show you right here. So you don't have to take my word for it. The only three people listed, Bill Montgomery, Charlie Kirk, George Hamstra. That's it. Charlie and Bill paid themselves about $80,000 a year. That's a pretty good living for Charlie Kirk, who's like 21 years old at the time, 22 maybe. That's a pretty good living for a 22-year-old. I don't know a lot of 22-year-olds making $80,000. Now watch what happens the next year. They go from $11 million. He meets Erika Fransved. We're at $28 million the next year. I mean, we didn't just double. We almost tripled. And we were already in the 8-figure range. Now let's look at the filing. Not only did they triple, look what happened to their officers, directors, and key employees. No longer is it just Bill Montgomery, George Hamstra, and Charlie Kirk. We've added Mike Miller, Tom Sedeka, Tyler Boyer, Benjamin Johnson, Joshua Defoe, Stacey Sheridan, Doug DeGroot. We've added a lot of people here. And we've added a lot of salary. Now all of a sudden he's making $300,000 a year. He made 80 the year before that. Now Tyler Boyer's making 80. He didn't even work there the year before that. Joshua Defoe making 140. Stacey Sheridan making 180. Bill Montgomery's still around 80.
Don't you think that's a little weird? Like the year that Erika Kirk, some reality TV ditzy Miss Arizona girl, comes in, immediately funding jumps from 10 mil a year for TPUSA to like 30 mil. And all these horrific actors who knew Erika Fransved from college or whatever, they went to some like Christian college together. They all joined the team and magically the whole thing, blows up. Isn't that a little weird? I don't know. I just find it a little bit weird. It's not extremely red flag, but it's yellowish, reddish flag. But we have more. Don't worry. We have more. Okay. Because just this week, as you know, Wolves in Finance, actually it was last week, Wolves in Finance, the accountant who has a YouTube channel with like 300,000 subscribers. He's just some YouTuber, he was going through the financials of TPUSA. That apparently really angered TPUSA, so much so to the point that they have now threatened him with a lawsuit, if you can believe it, effectively, right? They haven't actually sued him, but they sent him a cease and desist letter. And there's a very interesting detail in this cease and desist letter that proves, I think personally, that they were misrepresenting the political activities that they were reporting to the IRS, which would mean that there would need to be some sort of IRS investigation. There's FEC law about, political financing, nonprofits, reports, and whatnot. There's also IRS law. all right? The Internal Revenue Service, tax service in America. And it just so happens that when they sent a simple cease and desist letter, this is not even discovery from a lawsuit. This is a cease and desist letter. They did a self-report and they exposed themselves, okay? But we'll get to that in a second. First, I want to dive into exactly what this is all about. One way in which TPUSA has tried to vindicate themselves and, I guess, clear themselves of any wrongdoing is they sent this letter to what Bullet Tactical Proof, whatever that stupid podcast, that guy that leaked the messages from Erika Kirk to Andrew Colvett, he wasn't supposed to leak. And then he's like, oh, sorry, bro, I'm live streaming to like 50 people, bro. I'm sorry. Like I got a lot of things going on here. I'm sorry I leaked it. It literally said, do not show this. And he showed it. What's that YouTube show's name? Tactical Bulletproof or something. Anyways, so they published this letter. Again, I don't think he was supposed to publish this letter. This is from the Department of the Treasury. The whole essence of this letter is we are not investigating TPUSA for any fraud, any financial wrongdoing, any misreporting. Okay, we see that the 990 forms have been submitted, blah, 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 blah. Okay, now I don't know about you guys, but I've never heard of anyone receiving a letter from the Department of Treasury, not just the Department of Treasury, but this letter came directly from Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury. You're talking about why is some random political organization who, is taking in a lot of money right now? There's allegations, yes, of misreporting and finances and fraudulent behavior. There's allegations of this. But they're just some random political organization close with Trump, really in a lot of ways responsible for a great deal of people supporting and voting for Trump in his last election cycle. So why is the Secretary of the Treasury sending a personal note to Erika Kirk saying like, oh, no, you're good. Don't worry about a thing. Anyone else find that a little bit weird? Because I do. Now, here's another weird part of this. Wolves in Finance looked at this letter and he said, I think that's Donald Trump's handwriting. Now, there's no real way of knowing for sure whether or not this letter from Scott Bessent, which was to be addressed to Erika Kirk, was on the desk of Donald Trump and whether he wrote her name and crossed out Mrs. Kirk. But, there is some indication it could have been. Now, I'm not a specialist when it comes to this sort of stuff, but you see Trump in a way to make letters personalized and whatnot. He oftentimes will cross out, he'll do annotations on the letter itself. He does this sort of style where he writes the person's name and does a dash after it. Usually you do a comma. Here are more examples of just that. He's editing on the page, annotations. He's writing Jerome, dash. There are dozens and dozens of examples of this. Wolves in Finance went through a lot of them. And the other thing is it's the same exact way he writes his Ks. It's the same way he does the same E in a lot of his letters and writing. So very, very questionable as to whether or not this was his writing. And again, if this was his writing, and this is a letter from the Secretary of the Treasury, as we know it is, it's been reported from the source that it is, why is Donald Trump personally intervening in a possible IRS investigation? Now, Bessent is saying there is no investigation, but there could also be state attorney generals that want to investigate this matter. There could be, this could be a cover up at the IRS. There may have been an investigation into this, and now they have stopped that. And the question, we don't really know what's going on here. We don't know why the Secretary of the Treasury sent this. We don't know why, if this is Donald Trump's handwriting, why he is, demanding in effect this personal letter and making sure that it gets signed off on to show that he oversaw this letter, gave it his stamp of approval, so to speak. We don't know why any of this is happening, but it does raise some serious questions, especially when you actually look into the financials of TPUSA and what is actually going on here. For starters, this is a very much, this is like a nothing burger, but it's kind of interesting. If you look at this is Wolves in Finance. In his video breaking it down, he discusses the fact that a lot of people donated to TPUSA after Charlie Kirk was unalived, and they were promised these nice big hats that have the number 47 on them to commemorate, Trump's election victory, and this is what happened.
I received a message from someone named Margaret. Like many other people, she donated money to Turning Point USA because she was moved by Charlie Kirk's death. She was told if she gave a donation that she would receive a hat as part of their fundraising effort. Here's the message. Thank you for your contribution to Turning Point USA with the official Turning Point email address. And it says, shipping of your hat could take up to 10 to 12 weeks. She donated on September 16th. 12 weeks would have been the second week in December. Margaret has never received a hat. Instead, she received this card with a rubber bracelet. They are sending bracelets to people instead of the hat they promised. And this is not an isolated incident. Here is a Facebook post. Made a $25 donation to TPUSA back in September that was supposed to come with a 47 hat free for making the donation. Never got hat. Tried texting them and calling them several times and have not gotten response. Did get one response from someone named Anika, who said she had no record of the transaction. Have sent them copies of my receipt with no response. Called and left my name and contact info on their voicemail because they never answer the phone and they don't even call you back. Loved Charlie Kirk and watched him religiously, but this has totally disappointed me. Will call my bank and see if I can get reimbursed for the donation. And the replies are full of comments saying the same thing. All I got was a bracelet. We got a bracelet. No hat as promised. Got a cheap rubber band bracelet and no hat. That's a big way to turn people away. Just make false promises. Same thing happened to my husband. No hat. Gave a donation back in September. And it goes on and on and on. People need to realize what Turning Point has been doing to get donations since Charlie Kirk's death. They are lying to people to get their money and then sending them rubber bracelets.
Ball of bracelets. Anyway, so I looked this up and there are a bunch of people online talking about this, that they got these like weird little red bracelets instead of the 47 hats. You might be thinking to yourself right now, like, Jackson, all right, whatever, who cares? Red hat, red bracelet, maybe you're saying like, well, I didn't donate. So, it is a donation. It's a something that you're supposed to give. You don't necessarily demand something back. It's not like you're buying something. They did promise that they were going to give the hats, but maybe this is not really that crazy. Well, yeah, in all honesty, compared to what I'm about to show you, it's not that crazy. But it does go to show that there is something going on here. I mean, you have an organization that's raked in $250 million since September 10th. More than $250 million, and they're giving people red plastic bracelets instead of, the hats that they promise. So weird, right? Weird. Yeah, I think so. So yeah, it does get a lot more interesting, okay? Because we have this. So this is the financial infrastructure of TPUSA in the affiliated entities. All this work has been done by Wolves in Finance. You can check out his channel here. I suggest you do after we finish the stream, because we got a lot more important stuff we're going to be covering, okay? So first of all, you've got Turning Point USA, which is a 501c3. 501c3 means it's a nonprofit organization that can do no political work, no political activity. They can't do anything that is explicitly partisan, right? So they can't have people who are wearing Trump merchandise. They can't have people saying, oh, I support Trump. You can't have people saying, I endorse JD Vance. Remember that. It's important for later. You also have Turning Point Action, which is a 501c4, slightly different organization. Up to 50% of the activity that a 501c4 can do can be political. 501c3, no political activity. That's Turning Point Endowment for the investments that TPUSA affiliated organizations have. Then there is America's Turning Point, which is no political activity. It is also a 501c3. As I understand, this is the organization that Tyler Boyer runs. And it actually has the same exact stated purpose, effectively almost, as Turning Point USA 501c3. So the first one and the fourth one have the same nonprofit structure, the same exact, mission goal as they have to file as they register the organization as a nonprofit, except this one is led by Charlie Kirk, and this one was led by Tyler Boyer. So there's a lot of concern, skepticism, rumors about why that was created. Was it created to essentially allow Tyler Boyer to do whatever he wanted? And there would be, I guess, a veil of Charlie Kirk not knowing what's going on there. That seems to be the case, but we can't say for certain. Then there's Turning Point PAC, which is allowed to do up to 100% political activity because it is a political action committee. Well, what is odd about this is that Turning Point USA is the organization that holds the TPUSA AmFest event every December. All right. Now, if you look at the emails that sent out the tickets for the AmFest event, it was from TPUSA. It wasn't from Turning Point Action, the 501c4. It wasn't from Turning Point PAC. If you look at the website that hosts the AmFest information and held the ticket information where you could buy tickets, at the bottom of the website, it literally says Turning Point USA is a 501c3, blah, 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 no political activity. So you got to ask the question, why then is Erika Kirk saying this in front of the Turning Point USA logo at a Turning Point USA hosted and presumably funded event when that would be illegal?
We're going to ensure that President Trump has Congress for all 4 years. We are going to get my husband's friend, J.D. Vance, elected for 48 and the most resounding way possible.
So there she is endorsing a political candidate, president of the United States, before any primary happens, before any discussion of this actually takes place. She is endorsing a political candidate. And if you just look at the facts, I mean, that's actually just illegal.
Before you say, well, maybe it was paid for by one of the other companies that allow political activity. No, no, no. It says Turning Point USA behind her head during the speech. The tickets for the event were sent out from Turning Point USA. The fact page for the event is hosted at tpusa.com. And at the bottom of the webpage, it explicitly says Turning Point USA is a 501c3. It looks to me like the executives at Turning Point are playing pretty fast and loose with the laws concerning 501c3s. Remember why this is important. A 501c3 is tax exempt, which is a tax subsidy. You are paying more in taxes so that they do not have to. So is it fair that Democrats are paying taxes that fund a campaign commercial for J.D. Vance? This is so unjust, which is why there are so many laws against what Erika Kirk just did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are you okay with your taxes, in effect, funding a giant campaign commercial for J.D. Vance? I don't think so. I don't think anyone is okay with that. Okay. Really, really weird to say the least. Okay. But that's not all. That's actually not all, because if we go back to this image I was showing you right here, you can see that Turning Point Action is allowed to have up to 50% political activity. Okay, so you can see that right here. Now, according to the IRS forms that were filed by Turning Point Action, we can look at it right here. I'll move my camera. It says that $637,000 of their budget was political activity. All right. That's part 1A of the Schedule C filing for the 501c4, the 990 form or whatever. So this is really weird because that would account for 3% of the Turning Point Action budget, the 501c4 budget. Only 3% of their budget would then be political activity. Okay. And you don't have to be all that much of a brainiac or, big investigator to see that these numbers just don't really add up. Okay. Even maybe the $637,000 was for some campaign event. It says that. It says it was for campaign or political event expenses. If you actually look at the filing, but look at everything else Turning Point Action was doing under Tyler Boyer's leadership.
Is an audit. We're going to do an audit right here, right now. And you people on the internet can help me do it. We're going to look at what Turning Point Action actually does in real life. And then we are going to compare that to what they are reporting in their financials. If it looks like their political activity exceeds 3%, that means that they are lying. So to start out with, on their website, tpaction.com, there's an entire page dedicated to ballot harvesting. It says, Turning Point Action's Chase the Vote initiative. They say, TP Action chased ballots in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Nevada. They describe this as, the radical left was beating us in the ballot game. In 2024, Turning Point Action launched the first and most robust conservative ballot operation. So they are specifically saying on the website that this is partisan. It should not qualify as a nonpartisan get-out-the-vote effort. It is extremely partisan. So why are the expenses for this not listed on the 990 form? This Chase the Vote initiative sounds like ballot harvesting. People call this different names. Ballot harvesting, ballot chasing, door knocking, whatever you call it. It involves going to someone's door and getting their ballot. Ballot harvesting is not illegal as long as they follow the rules. Every state has different election laws. For instance, in Arizona, ballot harvesting is only allowed for immediate family members and caregivers. For the sake of this video, we are going to assume that Turning Point is doing ballot harvesting correctly. I'm just going to assume that they hired all of these people to harvest ballots only for their immediate family members. I know that is a massive assumption, but we're going to start there. My problem is not the ballot harvesting. The problem is how are they paying for the ballot harvesting? Are they paying for it out of companies that are not supposed to be doing political activity and then not reporting it to the IRS? Here's a post by Tyler Boyer. Another day, another group of dozens of full-time ballot chasers being trained into the field. I wonder how they are paying for all of this.
That's the point here. You see throughout this video, we're not going to go through all of it, but you can see throughout this video that the ballot harvesters and the people that were, getting the ballots, I guess, in the mailbox and stuff, you see them wearing Make America Great Again hats. You see on their website, they talk about this operation in an explicitly partisan manner. And you can also see that the individuals who are leading this effort up and the people who are working underneath them as just random field operators getting the ballots and whatnot, they were all being paid, okay? Or maybe not each and every one of them, but those chasing and curing the votes, they were getting paid, okay? So they even have job postings on their social media that they made for this explicit purpose. Those are some of the field managers of the operation now hiring Chase the Vote managers, and this was happening in states all across the country. So yeah, I gotta ask the question, if they're hiring people in New Hampshire, in Phoenix, in Arizona, and wherever else, and they were hiring all these people, how did they pay for this? Because it was clearly a partisan operation. So either you got what looks like something that should be an IRS investigation or an FEC investigation. But for some reason, we know that the IRS has sent this letter to Erika Kirk saying, we're not investigating you. And maybe, just maybe, that's Donald Trump's handwriting. Could that be an effort by the president of the United States to stop an investigation into a political ally of his who potentially could have violated IRS or FEC law by giving these funds to an operation that was partisan, lying about it on the IRS forms to avoid paying taxable income? Is that a possibility? Yes, it is. I'm not going to say it's what happened because I don't want to get sued like Candace Owens might and like Wolves in Finance might. But here's the last point I want to show you about this, because it shows how the cease and desist letter that Turning Point USA, Erika Kirk, sent to Wolves and Finance exposes the fact that the numbers that they have purported to be accurate on their IRS forms may not be accurate. It may be that they actually spent a lot more money on political activity than they reported, and they may have just exposed themselves in this letter that they sent to Wolves and Finance, trying to explain away the problems he was bringing up.
Reason, if you're still not convinced, do you remember last week when Turning Point's lawyer sent me a threatening letter? That was one of the worst mistakes that Turning Point has done. That letter is the key to this entire story. because in that letter, they write out their official reason why Turning Point Action's budget increased from $10.7 million in FY23 to $27.2 million in FY24. This increase of $16.5 million was for, and I quote, lobbying and political activity during election years.
So where's that money being reported? They're saying that they used that money in the letter, in the cease and desist letter, for lobbying and political activity, but where's that reporting? We don't see that.
This is what Turning Point's own lawyer is saying the $16.5 million is being used for.
It seems like the lawyers and the accountants don't have their story straight.
So why is none of this money being reported on Schedule C in the 990 form? According to Turning Point's own official statement, they are guilty. Now, I realize we're not doing a real audit here. We do not have access to all the financial information. It is possible that Turning Point has an innocent explanation for all of this. But from what little information we do have, it certainly looks like something illegal is going on. But here's the crazy part. Turning Point Action is not even my biggest concern. The biggest problem is America's Turning Point, that strange 501c3 managed by Tyler Boyer. It is managed by the same person who manages the election-focused organizations Turning Point Action and Turning Point PAC. But we are supposed to believe that it is a 501c3 that does absolutely no political activity whatsoever. Well, we have already seen the types of things that Turning Point is not counting as political activity. With everything that I have shown you about Tyler Boyer and his operations, how many of you believe that America's Turning Point is doing nothing political?
Yeah. Seems like we're kind of looking at a slush fund. Not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying kinda looks like some of the reporting is not being done so well. It kind of looks like Baker Tilly needs to take a second look at the audits that they do. Kind of seems a bit like this is a bunch of bullshit that we're being spoon-fed. And for some reason, Trump's Secretary of Treasury sent a personal letter to Wolves in Finance to shut the fuck up or else you may get, or sorry, he sent that letter to Erika Kirk to say everything is fine. And then Erika Kirk sent the letter to Wolves in Finance to shut the fuck up, stop talking about this, issue retractions and apologize or else. So there you go, folks. Lots of weird stuff going on there. Keep in mind, Nixon was brought down because of the purported role, the alleged role, the perceived role that he played in trying to, I guess, hide the fact that he did nothing wrong. He was trying to, it's like he was caught in a lie, but he didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't what they were making it out to be, so he tried to just cover everything up all at once. He got caught in the cover-up, and then that's how he ended up getting kicked out. Anything could happen. Like Nixon's thing, he didn't do anything bad. It was basically like, just stop looking into this, because I actually didn't do anything bad, and stop making a big deal out of this. And then because he did that, they said, okay, goodbye. Goodbye. A lot of the biggest mafias in the world, they got taken down by accountants, right? Tax evasion, tax issues, right? So this is very interesting. Very interesting. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.